Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the Mongols, and this should go pretty quick, so make sure that you have your Mongol notes with you, so as we go through this you can fill them in. But like I said, this should be a pretty quick um, deal today. Okay, so what we're looking at here with the Mongols are going to start their empire in the modern day nation of Mongolia, which does not exist at this time as an actual country. They're going to start here. The expansion starts here. The border, which is really a border region on the outside of the Chinese dynastic system. So when we talked about China always having to protect themselves from these nomads, we're kind of talking about this area. And the geography in this part of Europe, Eurasia, around where the Mongols are, a lot of it's going to be it's what we call the Eurasian steppe, and it's mostly grassland, so it's going to be really well suited um, for the Mongols. The Mongols are going to be a contemporary of the Song dynasty in China, so your time frame for the Mongols is going to be the 11 to 1200s. And like I mentioned, the geographic features of this area, you have the Eurasian steppe, which are basically these grasslands that cover Eurasia from the Caspian Sea over here all the way over to Mongolia. So this is going to be basically a perfect setup for pastoralism, which of course the Mongols are going to follow. The Mongols are absolutely fantastic pastoralists, which is actually what allows them to conquer all of their near neighbors, who are going to be settled civilizations. Mongols are going to utilize their speed, their ability to constantly be on the move, to attack and draw back quickly to conquer their neighbors. And like I said, they're great at conquering because they are pastoralists. Most militaries at this time, at this point in history, are very slow moving. We're talking foot soldiers like the Roman Empire that rely on legions and super long supply trains. But because the Mongols are pastoralists, they don't have supply trains. They just ride their furry little ponies across the steppe, and like all good pastoralists, they carry everything they need with them. These are going to be pictures, this one and the next slide are pictures of Mongolia, so you see what kind of environment you have. As you can see, this is kind of like this big sky country. It's mostly grasslands here with a few mountains, your foothills. Here you have what looks like a cowboy, the Old West, but it's really a Mongol kid riding his pony bareback, herding the goats that you see in the foreground there. And the pastoralist is still a viable way of life in Mongolia even today because that's what the environment is going to foster. Okay, here we have little Carmen Sandiego in the Gobi Desert, which is in Mongolia. Okay, I'm sorry if this is cutting the slides off. Let me see if I can raise it a little bit. Well, now it cuts off the quote, but you'll be fine. Okay, so the Mongol Empire is ginormous. It's the largest empire ever created by a single person. The Mongol conquest is going to go through 3 generations of Mongols. Genghis Khan, his son, and his grandsons are all huge conquerors. Eventually, the Mongol Empire is going to be this big thing we're looking at. It goes to, here we have Kyiv. This is going to be modern-day Ukraine, so it goes almost into modern-day Poland. We have most of modern Russia, all of modern China, and all the way even into Korea. The Mongols do attempt an unsuccessful invasion of Japan. Their empire is going to go to the Himalayas here, but it's going to stop there. They're not going to go into India, probably because their ponies are not exactly suited for the subtropical environment of India. So we're going to avoid this region, but the Mongols then go into Persia, where they're going to cause the fall of the last caliph in Baghdad, and all the way into modern Turkey. The reason they don't go into this area is because there is another pastoralist group that has conquered this region. And at the bottom here, you have a quote from Genghis Khan. It kind of lets you know what kind of dude he is. He's not a nice dude. He's by no means a nice, caring, charming person. But his quote here, and it's on the top of your notes, it says, "The greatest happiness is to vanquish your enemies, to chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, to see those dear to them bathed in tears, to clasp to your bosom their wives and daughters." So that gives you an idea of who their conqueror is going to be and what kind of people they're going to set up. Okay, so what were the Mongols like pre-empire? They're comparable with pre-Islamic Arabia. We have nomadic pastoralists, which means they're very tribal. Because we're tribal, we have no centralized government to kind of control and govern these various tribes. So with your conflicts here, you pretty much have like blood feuds. It's almost like Hatfield and McCoy's. If you hurt somebody in my tribe, I'm going to send somebody to hurt somebody in your tribe, and it's going to go back and forth in this kind of seemingly endless conflict. So that leads to lots of warfare. The Mongols are largely illiterate. Nomads don't have job specialization. Your economic system is all about herding because of their environment. But even nomads are going to want luxury goods. Because pastoralists lack job specialization, they cannot produce their own luxury goods. That doesn't mean they don't want them. So what they do is they raid their settled neighbors. So a huge part of the Mongol economic system basically consists of raiding for booty along the edges of those more settled, powerful civilizations, like, for example, Song China. I'm going to call back to, if you guys remember the tribute system in China, we talked about the tribute system in practice versus theory. And in theory, it's supposed to really show how superior China is to all these other civilizations. If you remember, it's set up so that a foreigner goes into China and they bring them gifts and they bow down to the Chinese emperor, and it's really about showing how superior China is. But in practice, the Chinese government isn't always going to be as strong as they think they are or as they want to be. So pastoralists like the Mongols are going to be able to extort luxury gifts, luxury goods like silk out of China. And the Song dynasty, I mean, they are by no means a weak civilization. They're a very, very strong civilization. And it just shows you how strong the Mongols are, that they are able to take down the Song dynasty. I mean, they create the single largest continuous land empire that had ever existed, period. So these guys are no joke. And it's understandable that the Song is defeated by them. The Mongol social system is based on the clan, family, tribal system. You have a lot of low-level fighting over these limited resources in the steppe, like water, slaves, etc. We do see instances of wife stealing with the Mongols, which is where like a Mongol would ride up on his horse and just steal a woman basically and ride off into the sunset. So it's a very brutal, very rugged, violent system. The Mongols are not going to pull any punches here. They need everybody in their society to be a fully functioning member by a very early age. So you're going to see in this civilization children riding bareback on their horses by about age 4 or so. Okay, Holy Empire Batman. So from about 1206 to 1227, Genghis Khan begins to unite the empire by breaking down these kinship ties. So we can compare this, like we did in your notes, to Muhammad's use of Dar al-Islam and uniting all Arabs. So what they're going to do is stop fighting in their tribal wars and to be a unified force to go out and conquer others. You're going to need a common external enemy instead of your multiple internal enemies if you're going to be a conquering force. So Genghis is able to distract from infighting among the Mongols by conquering others. And he creates an empire that's going to run from Syria, or from China in the east to Syria, which is in the Mediterranean on the west, and from Russia in the north to Korea in the southeast. So this empire is huge. The capital is going to be at Karakoram, which is out on the steppe. It's way out towards the western portion of China. The Pax Mongolica is something that I need you guys to put like a big star, circle it, highlight it, draw a little pony out beside it so you know it's a huge part of the Mongols. It's what we really need to know from this time period. The Pax Mongolica is this period of stability. So the creation of this huge empire in 20 years brings the stability that we know now as the Pax Mongolica, which basically means Mongol peace. So when you have stability and peace, things like trade and cultural diffusion, syncretism, and the movement of religion, inventions, technology, and unfortunately diseases will also move with it. So in a stable empire, people can take the economic risk that's necessary to trade. Like if everything is under one government, you don't need to see as much difficulty. You do not see as much difficulty in moving goods, people, and ideas throughout all these different governments. So, for example, in the past, you might have had 20 different governments across Eurasia, which means you also have to deal with 20 different law codes and languages. But under the Mongols, there is only one unified rule, so that makes goods and services, people and inventions, and even religions move much more easily across this area. The original empire, Mongol Empire, breaks up around 1260, but it doesn't completely dissolve. It's going to turn into 4 separate khanates. So your big one here is the Khanate of the Great Khan. This was run by Kublai Khan, which is Genghis Khan's grandson. Then you have the Khanate of Chagatai, which is going to be in Central Asia. The Khanate of the Golden Horde is up here in Russia. And then the Khanate of Persia, the Ilkhans, is your 4th Khanate. Okay, so Genghis Khan dies, like everybody eventually does, and his death is really interesting. We don't know where he's buried because when he died, they sent out this big group of people to go bury him. And when they got close to where the Mongols were camped, they were actually all killed. Every single one of them died. And then people that killed those people were killed. So it was kind of his way to like rest in peace, so nobody knew where he was buried, which is pretty interesting. So after Genghis Khan's death, his family continues his empire, even though it's no longer under one person's rule. It is unified through these 4 caliphs. The Great Khan, which is the Yuan dynasty of China, the Khanate of Chagatai, which would be Central Asia, and a lot of your trade routes, the Golden Horde, which would be Russia, Northern Eurasia, and then, like I said, the Khanate of Persia, which is formed from eastern portions of what used to be the Abbasid Caliphate. Okay, we're going to go back to the Pax Mongolica for a few minutes because it is so important. The Pax Mongolica, like I said, it stands for the Mongol peace in Latin. I'm not sure why we use Latin to talk about the Mongols, but whatever. This is this time of stability and peace that's caused by all of Eurasia basically being under the rule of a single entity, which would be the Mongols. So all of Eurasia is under the rule of one government. And it facilitates contact between various parts of Eurasia, everywhere from the Mediterranean to the Pacific. And you have interaction between this huge variety of people, culture, religions, and ethnicities. This is going to allow for the exchange and spread of ideas, goods, and technologies, as well as disease. For example, all of the awesome inventions from the Song dynasty, like gunpowder, are going to make their way across Eurasia during this Pax Mongolica. But the Mongols are not these like friendly little people riding in on their furry little ponies. They do cause a lot of destruction and subjugation. For example, if a town refused Mongol rule, the Mongols had no problem making an example of them by killing everybody in the city, everybody that inhabited this city. Sorry, I'm trying to move this so that you guys can see the last one. Technical difficulties. Everybody loves technology. It's just not going to work. The benefits of the Mongol rule is that the Mongols made the people under their rule feel more unified. So if you can't see those last 4 words, it's that the Mongols made the people under their rule feel more unified. They're going to bring stability with them, but this dislike makes the people feel more united. For example, in Han China, the Han Chinese were not happy about being ruled by foreigners, and it kind of goes back to them wanting to recreate their empire as it had been in the past. So, like I said, the Mongols are the dislike and hatred of their rule is going to make the people feel more unified. And that's going to stop our Mongol discussion today. Make sure that you've started the Day of Empires reading that you were given on Friday. You have your questions answered by Tuesday. It's a really great read to see how Genghis Khan actually does mastermind this giant empire, how he's able to take over all of these civilizations. So that takes care of our Mongols, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have in class.